Welcome inside Black and Gold. Steve Geller, Jeff Nowak, and the NFL schedule is out. We have it, Who Dat Nation. We'll be going over it game by game for you, giving our thoughts on the Saints rundown. And man, oh man, Jeff, the biggest thing that stood out to me, zero primetime games in this for the Saints. And I guess considering what happened last year, it's not a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who is a very routine-oriented person, I'm thrilled by the fact that I only have to worry about noon and 3 o'clock starts all season, all the games on Sundays.
I texted the Cannon, even though he's on vacation, I was like, no point afters till 1 a.m. this year, baby.
Right. And like, I understand like that's not the case for everybody. Like I'm being very selfish in that, but like, I also think the team, like, sure, you want to be on national television, but at the same time, like no short weeks. You don't have to worry about preparing for a Thursday night game at all. You don't even have to worry about preparing for a Sunday game off of a Monday game. No international trips. Like this is effectively an NFL schedule on easy mode from a rest perspective. But we'll get into that. You know what it means, like why the Saints are being treated that way. There's two other teams without primetime games. We'll talk about that. This first segment, I do want to get through some news. What's happened. I want to talk about the schedule release and some of the videos. The Saints have signed draft picks, whatever. Second segment, we're going to go through the first half of the schedule. Third segment, we're going to go through the second half of the schedule, give our picks, predictions, and whatnot. I have a post up on WWL.com picking all 17 games. But there's some tough stretches in there, so we'll go through it. But yeah, first things first, some news. Not a ton has happened, but more has happened than I expected in the sense that, going into rookie minicamp, I would have said, man, there's just not a ton of track record for rookie tryout players or tryout players in general landing on the roster out of that camp. Now, we've seen tryout players like Lynn Bowden, for example, made the roster, but that was like an OTA tryout, not a rookie camp tryout. In this case, you had 3 players, and we talked about a couple of these in the last episode, kind of abstractly, because at the time we didn't know whether they'd be signed or not. First, defensive back Terrell Burgess, a guy we didn't talk about, been in the league a few years, been around. I don't know a ton about him at this point. I'm interested to hear more from him and see more from him in OTAs. But the guys that are more interesting, no offense to Terrell, Donovan Peoples-Jones, wide receiver. They did sign him. He's going to wear number 24, which good for him. He'll be fun to watch. And then UDFA Hunter Dekkers, quarterback out of Iowa State, another southpaw. I was told, as I kind of confirmed this news on earlier in the week, that he had interest. Like there was a few teams that invited him to come and try out. He decided to go to the Saints because he liked the idea of being on a roster, or at least getting a chance to be on a roster with all those quarterbacks, with Scott Tolzien and Doug Nussmeier and Scott Linehan and Kellen Moore, obviously. So, that's why he's here. And I didn't expect the Saints. Like, this was a bit of a surprise to me because, this is already a team with 3 young, unproven quarterbacks. And now you're adding a 4th. And a guy with a really interesting past in the sense that started at Iowa State, started 12 games in 2022, got embroiled in a gambling scandal. He had put a bunch of bets down underage. One of them was a $15 bet on an Iowa State game that he didn't even play in, but he and a couple other players got, kind of taken for a ride on that. And he was ultimately banned from the NCAA, didn't play in 2023, transferred to JUCO, Western Iowa Community College, played in 2024, had a really solid season, granted against community college competition. But when I saw him out there, and you could probably vouch for this too, like it wasn't like you watch him throw and you're like, that guy, like last year when Kellen Mond was out there, I was like, he just doesn't have it. Like that's not an NFL quarterback. That arm is not an NFL quarterback arm. Maybe he latches on as a depth guy, but like I don't see him really having the skill set to do anything. I saw in Hunter, I was like, okay, I can see it. Like you could see a guy developing, maybe a high level backup ceiling, but they're going to give him a chance. So kind of a cool story.
Yeah, with Dekkers, it was always like, I think we even were talking about on the sideline, like, maybe he doesn't latch on here, but you can see this dude somewhere. And it turns out, well, he is going to be here
Yeah, and the only reason, like, again, it's like, okay, you're talking about a three-way quarterback competition where it feels like the real need is a veteran guy,
Yeah.
and instead you add a fourth young quarterback. But I think when you have a staff with this many veteran quarterbacks on it, or at least like former quarterbacks on it, you probably feel like pretty good about your ability to develop quarterbacks. So we'll see. But either way, that's it. 3 guys waived. Running back Jordan Mims, who also got to work out with the Patriots. Millard Bradford, defensive back, and linebacker Anthony Orji, who was claimed on waivers by the Titans. So, he goes back to Nashville. He went to Vanderbilt.
Right.
So I'm sure he appreciated kind of the trip, that kind of becoming his destination. But, a couple of guys that did contribute last year, these guys played more special teams than anything else, but it's I don't think you're going to see those guys back. That said, maybe a Millard Bradford in the sense that once these guys retire, Derek Carr, Ryan Ramczyk, once those become official, you should have some extra spots to mess around with. But for now, no longer on the roster.
Yeah, definitely curious to see what happens for a guy like Jordan Mims. I appreciated what we saw out of him. Just I thought he'll get a look see somewhere else if it's the Patriots or another team. But I do think he can provide some good depth on a running back roster with Orji. The jokes the Cajun Cannon will make, I will definitely miss. Hopefully he can, latch on with Tennessee and maybe we see him late in the season.
Yeah, I like Anthony. I think he's got a good approach. As
the Cannon would say, everyone loves an Orji.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you also got rid of Willie Gay. So those screenshots last forever, but they won't be standing next to each other anytime soon. All right. A couple other things. Saints are opening minicamp for 2 days in June, which they have not done once since I have been here. Is very much
right. I can't recall that ever.
No, and I think it's pretty cool. The tickets have already sold out, or I guess sold out isn't the word. Like they've been reserved. They're free.
But nobody cares about this team anymore.
I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, they went out to California last year, so this is the first time they've had an open practice at their team facility since 2023. Because when they came back, they had open practices, but one was at Tulane, one was at the Superdome. So, it'll be fun to see people back out there and kind of getting a first glance at the Kellen Moore era. Hopefully, we have good attendance, so that doesn't become a talking point. But that'll be I take that back. That's mandatory minicamp, not OTAs. So, everyone should be there. So it'll be cool for that. It's only 2 of them, not 3 of them. But I think the third one should be open to the media, so we'll be out there as well. But it also means that we'll be able to record more video, because that's kind of the, when fans are out there, they're a little more lenient on the video side of things, because if fans can record whatever they want, then it's hard for them to be like, don't take video of this. So we'll see. But either way,
right? It's like, instead of giving my media credential, I'll just get a ticket and sit in the stands.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, I saw a few people ask, like, why isn't there any video from rookie minicamp, or at least like from us?
Right. And
because when we go inside, we're not allowed to record on our cell phones. So that'll be like TV camera footage, but we're a radio station. So kind of SOL in that front, but we'll have plenty of video from rookie camp. So keep an eye out for that. Finally, let's get to the schedule. A couple notes. So first, no primetime games. First time since 2000 that the Saints have not had a single primetime game. That's Monday Night Football. That's Sunday Night Football. That's Thursday Night Football. And when you look at how the Saints performed last year on Monday night, the 2 games they had it, the Chiefs game that they got kind of torched in is an example of them being competitive. That's that's the most competitive they've been in one of those settings in the last several years. And, that's not going to cut it. And then you go on Christmas Eve on Monday Night Football, national television, get just shut out 34-0. Also,
that seems to be the nail in the coffin for prime time right there.
Right. And especially like Thursday Night Football, like you put on the type of showing the Saints did against the Broncos, like Thursday Night Football is already a tough sell for ratings, right? Like Prime spent a lot of money to get the broadcast rights for those games. They're not just going to hand it to you if they don't have to, if they think you're just going to lay an egg and waste their time. So, yeah, the Saints have to prove that they're worth putting in those. Like, again, like I don't mind it because I hate night games because it just ruins my entire week from a schedule perspective.
I get it from fans though.
But I like, as a fan, I would love to like go watch games in prime time. Like that's fun. And it's really telling of where this team is, like where the networks think this team is, because they're bidding on these games based on, we think people want to watch this game. And the Saints just don't have that.
Yeah, I thought maybe an Atlanta matchup would be prime time, or even the Chicago Bears for the Dennis Allen factor, but that's not happening.
Yeah, and there's two other teams that didn't get a primetime game. The Browns, and do you recall the other one?
Browns and Titans.
Yes, and the Titans.
Surprisingly,
right.
They didn't want to put Cam Ward in prime time.
Yeah, it's a little surprising. Probably matchup based, which, I think for a while they were trying to have a competitive balance thing with the Thursday night games and say every team has to have a Thursday night game.
Not anymore.
It seems like they don't really care about that anymore, which, I mean, I'm more annoyed about Sunday, Monday. If I could opt out of Thursday night football for the rest of my life, I would do it. I think every player would do it. Every team would do it. So, it's kind of one of the perks of being bad is you don't have to worry about that. No, I mean, that's tough, man. Those games are tough. What I will say is the Saints do have 6 afternoon kickoffs, and only 2 of those are you're facing a West Coast team, so you're going to get that afternoon kickoff, right? Like the Rams, Seahawks. Those they typically try not to put West Coast teams in noon slots for one thing. It's not really fair to the team because they're kicking off at 9 a.m. locally, and also from a ratings perspective for those markets, it's not good because you're asking people to tune in at 9 o'clock locally or 10 o'clock locally. So that's one thing, but there's several Saints games kicking off in that afternoon slot, and they put you there because it's more of a ratings draw. Right? Like those are actually like the 3 o'clock window on CBS and Fox is their highest rated window. Yeah. Like the noon games are very regional, but there's only a handful of games going on in the afternoon slot. So you're pulling a lot of the noon ratings into that. And they try to put games there that people will stick around to watch. So you have a handful of games like that. The division games are like that. The Saints actually have back-to-back games at 3 o'clock. Bucks in week 8 and then Rams in week 9. Week 12, you have the Falcons. So 3 out of 4 games in that stretch are afternoon starts. So it's at least something.
Yeah.
The Saints used to land in those slots all the time. Like you used to get like the Fox America's Game of the Week, like when it was Breeze and Brady and, stuff like that. You don't see that anymore. But so that's at least, it's not, it's not saying like, they're a draw. They're not, but it's not nothing. Last year, I think they had like all noon starts. I think they had like 2 3 o'clock games and the rest were noon starts other than the primetime games.
Yeah, selfishly for me too, Jeff, I love this schedule because of the non-primetime matchups and post-game going till 1 a.m. And then with a lot more 3 o'clock games than I expected, us on the getting ready for the games early in the morning at the Superdome, especially, we don't have to wake up, to be there so early anymore.
Yeah, it'll be nice to, that'll be
sleeping a little bit.
Home 3 o'clock starts. Home 3 o'clock starts. Patriots in week 6, Bucks in week 8, Falcons in week 12, Panthers in week 15. So you get to sleep in. Nice. More time to tailgate. As a fan, I love those afternoon starts because I don't have to wake up early. Got plenty of time to get drunk. I can enjoy the noon games and kind of kick into gear there. So
yeah, and we'll be properly fed. Getting to the game. It's not like just riding on coffee for the game.
Yeah. One other thing, schedule release video. I think the Saints. It was okay. In going around the league and watching some of these videos, I appreciate the Saints strategy. And if you haven't watched it, it's out there. I appreciate the Saints goal of incorporating elements around the team, reporters, local comedians, stuff like that. I think they missed in an opportunity to showcase Kellen and brand Kellen as something other than boring. And I don't think they did that, but they did include reporters, and I did appreciate that. It was cool to see, Ross Jackson, Nick Underhill. I thought Rod Walker was the star of the video. There wasn't a ton of humor in it outside of Rob Casey, who I think is very funny. But Rod nailed his line. We also had Bobby Hebert, so I did want to play that quick clip. So if you haven't seen the video or heard the video, you can get an idea of what that was. Here's the clip with Bobby.
Yeah, Coach, give me your assessment on the team's offseason moves, and do you think you did enough to fill the holes, especially with deep playoff teams like the Bills on the schedule?
We feel really good about where we're at.
Let me tell you something, Bobby Hebert. I listen to your little radio show. I hear how you talk on there. We ain't having none of that this year. None of it. Put some respect on our name.
Okay. So what did you think of the video?
Yeah, for me with Kellen Moore, I felt like it was almost they gave him a sheet of paper as he was walking in to film this and didn't get enough prep time to even try to, I don't know, get whatever acting skills he needed to be ready for this. But it was kind of awkward for him and fell a little flat for me. It was funny, like you said, to see the reporters in action. Definitely appreciate that part of it. But overall, it was definitely didn't live up to last year's schedule release video, which, we had Derek Carr dropping lines and even Mickey Loomis, which were nailed dead on.
Yeah, I thought last year's was very, very good. And there was, because they leaned into the joke a little bit more. And yeah, it's like you got to be making fun of yourself and also understand what the joke is at the same time. And I don't know if the Saints got there with this one. It felt like, because here's the thing, they didn't write anything for Rob. Rob's riffing up there. Like, Rob's doing his thing. He's great. But like you're asking reporters to be just kind of reporters and you're asking Kellen to just be Kellen. And it's like, where's the joke here? Like, something's got to be funny. What I would have done, and this is, this is a pie in the sky idea because I'm sure they only had so much time with Kellen. There's only so much you can do. But you go around the league and you see some of the videos that teams have put out, and there's willingness from some of these others. Like, go watch the Panthers and see what they did with Xavier Legette, and they kind of a joke about his accent, which was hilarious. And it kind of proves like, yeah, we're in on this joke. We're there with you. We think it's funny, And so what I would have done if I had the thing, the easel, the clacker, I think it's called
Spielberg over here.
Yeah. What I'm doing, same premise, schedule press conference thing. What I do is you start it that way and like a boring Kellen Moore answer. And then you find a way to get into like dream sequence montage. And Rob's not up there. Rob is in the montage. And you have Rob training Kellen to be petty. Like old school petty Sean Payton. And you're going through, he's wearing like a Bill Belichick, like ratty, torn up sweatshirt. And he's going through tunnels and he's just like, Seahawks, yeah, birds aren't real, and you get all the way. And it's like, that would be how you introduce the teams is like you throw a volleyball with like a Panthers sticker on it and he just like spikes it, and then you have Rob doing what Rob does, which is hilarious and riffing and in there kind of like coaching Kellen to be the angry petty coach in the press conference the way he just doesn't understand how to do it. And then you come out of that montage, you're back into the press conference, and the final question is something about the Falcons because they are your season finale. And I don't know, he comes out and says something like, shuck the Falcons. And then you nail it, you move on, and it would have been perfect. Because I think the bones of this video were good. There was something lacking. And like last year was such a good example of it because like you had Mickey Loomis in it, but Mickey Loomis is there chewing gum, like you have Derek Carr in it and Derek Carr's like, I think the people on Twitter just get me, like that's what was missing, that like the personality of the Saints in the video. And instead we got Rob's funny. Let's let Rob cook. So that's my critique.
Yeah. The biggest problem, sadly, Jeff, might be the talent there is Kellen Moore in front of a camera.
That's the thing. Like if I don't know if Kellen could have pulled it off, and maybe that's what you drew back and you didn't want to ask too much of him. And I think people are going to be softer on this locally because we want to be nice to the reporters. And I think the reporters did a great job. I appreciate, I thought Ross was funny. I thought Sharif Ishak did a good job. You had Doug Mouton in there, Fletcher, which I think they're like Rob had a really funny quip to Fletcher, which is like I hate hearing you talk or something like that. Obviously Bobby, and again Rod nailed it. You're gonna talk to Rod tonight on.
He's like, I'm good.
Yeah, that was the funniest point because my issue was it like dragged too long. It was a little boring because it was repetitive. Like once you got through the bit once, twice, 3 times, it's like, okay, now Jane Slater is here. You know, like it just got kind of repetitive, which is why the montage would have been kind of a fun thing. You could got a good song over it. You know, you could have done something local, like a Juvenile song or something. Anyway, that's where, like, I literally was walking the dog this morning being like, why don't I think this is good? Because like I wanted to like it. I go into these videos wanting to be like, this is great. And it didn't get there for me. There was some of these schedule release videos I thought were fantastic. But what were your thoughts? Okay, like, let's hear what you have to say. And then I'm curious, what were some of your favorite schedule release videos?
Yeah, just the thing with the Saints, like we said, it was a little disappointing because of what we saw last year. And it's like, all right, what is this team going to put together this season going into it with a new head coach in the mix? And like I said, I think the biggest problem is probably the talent there with Kellen, and it just doesn't have that charisma for the video. Maybe next year he'll loosen up some. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, and I'm being overly critical. Like I think they these folks did a good job. I think the bar was raised last year, and this came in beneath it because I think they nailed it last year. Anyway.
Yeah, for the ones I really liked, Seattle I thought did a fantastic job.
Like retro kind of action figures. Yeah,
that was fun for sure. And then I got a good laugh from the Buffalo Bills with the AI joke. And even in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I'm like, they keep talking AI. I'm like, Allen Iverson's not from Buffalo though.
Yeah.
And then he did show up, and I was like, oh crap, what are they going to do here? And he was like, Buffalo Bills. What do they want to do with me?
Well, it's just funny because, like, I'm sure the thought process that went into that was like, do you think we could get AI? Do you think we could actually get Allen Iverson to do this?
Maybe Josh Allen's buddies with him. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they have the same agent or something.
Yeah.
It was just use AI. Like, AI. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was funny. But that's the thing. Like, it doesn't have to be over the top. Like, that's the unique thing about these videos. It's like the best one that anyone has ever put out is the Tennessee Titans going out on the street and just asking random people to showing them the logos and saying, who do you think this is? And like they show them the Saints logo and they're like, the St. Louis Rams. And then it just pops up like whatever they say.
My favorite one was you see the Chargers lightning bolt and the girl says Lightning McQueen.
Yeah. No, I mean, like that was, we talk about, okay, how much time do you have to put into it? They probably put 10 minutes into that, or at least like 10 minutes of thought into it. Like, here's a little microphone, go out in the street. And it just came off so perfectly.
Hey, at least we're not the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh man, the Colts, 2 different teams did Minecraft, which was interesting. I wonder if Microsoft was out there, but yeah, they actually apologized for theirs because the first team they faced is the Dolphins, and they poked fun at Tyreek Hill getting arrested.
The Tyreek Hill joke did not land.
They apologized and deleted it. And it's funny because
the internet, it's forever. You can still see it.
And it's funny because I thought like the video itself was mostly funny, and like they poked fun at a lot of teams. They just, whoever was in charge of, vetting and making sure it's like, how's this going to come off?
We talked about it a little though. Personally, thought that was funny, but I get it. It's not politically correct, I guess you want to say.
Yeah, it's treading the line. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought they were poking fun at like the police overreacting more so than Tyreek, but it's a traumatic experience for him. I don't think, like, I understand why, like if you had cleared that with him first, maybe it's like, he'd be like, fine, go ahead. Like, I don't think they did that. But the Chargers also did Minecraft, which is interesting. Like, and I get it. It's in the news right now, but there was the Ravens did Severance.
I haven't seen that one, and I haven't seen Severance.
The production value of it alone was wild. Atlanta's I thought was really good. They did like a whole Mario Kart thing, which is a ton of little Easter eggs in there if you go and watch it. So that's pretty cool. I mentioned the Xavier Leggett one. You mentioned the Seahawks one. The Bengals had by far the laziest one.
Yeah, it was like, here it is.
Like they just had Joe Burrow saying, here's the schedule. And he got up and walked away, and they just let the camera roll.
Yeah, they rolled credits basically.
But I do give the Saints credit because I feel like the Saints have an approach to these that is at least original. Like they are showcasing the local area and like the culture around the team more than a lot of other teams are. Like for example, the Bills, like they didn't get a local person. They thought the AI joke was funny, so they got a guy who has nothing to do with Buffalo. Like the Saints get people who have connections to the area. And I do appreciate that. So it's always going to hit a little more within the market than outside of the market. But like, there's a pretty high bar that some of these teams set for these videos in general.
I'm totally with you, though. It's going to be hard to ever top what the Titans did, because that was a laugher from start to finish.
Everyone's playing for second. Like, that's going to be the best one. Like, no one's going to top that unless they do the same thing. And at that point, it's derivative.
Right. It's like, do we do this again this year? But it's like, we've been there, done that before.
I think the Titans actually did it again. They had 2 videos. That wasn't even their main one. I think they just thought it was such a funny idea that they did it. Anyway. All right. That's all I have on that. You got anything else before we move on?
No, ready to start breaking down this schedule.
Dun, 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 dun. Schedule release. Inside Black and Gold. We'll be right back after this. Steve Geller, Jeff Nowak. I don't know why I committed to it. So that's what we're doing. All right.
Hey, stick with it, baby.
And we're back on Inside Black and Gold schedule release edition. I am Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. You know, we're in year 4 of this podcast, and so I decided to go back through our YouTube playlist and kind of take screenshots at random intervals to like see how the broadcast like this has changed over the time. Man, some of the like the visuals on those first like couple of years was rough.
Oh no.
Like the camera quality was tough. The lighting was tough. My background has like grown over the years, right? When we started, I had like one picture back there, and now it's just this cacophony of images. I know cacophony is sound, but you get the idea. Like your whole thing has kind of grown over. It's just kind of funny to go back and watch it. But yeah, I did that the other day, and it's just like I can see the shape of my face changing over time. You know?
Oh, man, that was right.
I was kind of chubby in June 2023. You know. Anyway, I don't know why I decided to mention that there, but I just did it. I did enjoy that.
You could do like a time lapse of Inside Black and Gold throughout the years.
Yeah, but one thing that has been pretty consistent is our third co-host, Drew Brees, behind me.
Drew Brees,
who we've talked to several times to this point in the off season because he's opening Surge Entertainment. There's a grand opening or an event on Saturday, so check that out. It's
they are calling it a grand opening, even though it is open.
Yeah, it's already open, but like so, go check that out. Either way, we talked to Drew, and before we get into the schedule, I do want to hear a quote from or a clip from Drew because the hardest thing about predicting this schedule for the Saints is I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. And we can make a guess.
Right. We
can say we think it's going to be Tyler Shuck. We think it's going to be Spencer Rattler. Tyler Shuck is Kellen Moore's guy. He's got to have the inside track, whatever. It's hard to like depending on how you handle the quarterback situation. Do you bring in a veteran, right? Do you consider to start a veteran? Do you sign Aaron Rodgers? Like things will change drastically if suddenly Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback, like, and you start looking at these matchups differently. So like that's gonna have to be a major kind of asterisk over any of our predictions. Is like if I go through this whole thing saying like, oh, Spencer, and then it's Tyler, this is all moot. So all that is to say, Drew was asked about the concept of starting a rookie from day one and what are his thoughts on that idea. So let's listen to what he had to say.
Yeah, look, first off, it's never easy. Nothing about the NFL game, playing the quarterback position, is easy. There have been guys who have come in as rookies and played very, very well, probably shown some maturity beyond their years and been very productive. And yet I would say that's definitely the exception, not the rule. I think in just about every case, it really benefits a rookie quarterback to sit behind a veteran guy for at least a period of time to learn the speed of the game, to begin to have an understanding and a comfort level with the offense, and just the way that you have to lead a team, the way that you have to manage a huddle, the way that you have to play situational football. All those things, they come with time and they come with experience. And there's really no way to fast track that other than guys just getting experience. And so naturally, if you're thrown in there as a young player, look, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make those quote unquote rookie mistakes, right? And that just comes with the territory. But now, take a coach like Kellen Moore and the support staff that he has, a lot of guys that have played the quarterback position at the NFL level, coached for a long time. Look, he's got as good a group as you would ever want to be coaching you, and a great system. But, naturally, you're still going to have those growing pains. And I think that's just something everybody has to accept.
Yeah. And so the reason I play that is because throughout the process of kind of predicting these games, I don't want to say I've kind of changed course, but I've reminded myself that one of my long held takes, and it's easy to forget that when you're in the moment and it's like, Tyler Shuck. One of my long held takes, and I've said this about Drake May with the Patriots. I've said this about like basically every young quarterback who wasn't the number one overall pick. Guys benefit from sitting and learning at the NFL level. And it would be easy to get kind of blinded by the idea of what if he shows up and is Jaden Daniels? What if he's a star right away? What if Tyler Shuck shows up and is the anomaly, is the exception to that rule? But I have to hold firm to my own beliefs, and my beliefs do align with what Drew is saying, that he will benefit from not starting right away. So as I go through my predictions, I am going to operate under the assumption that Spencer Rattler is the starting quarterback at the beginning of the year, because I just think that's the best case scenario. And the only reason that wouldn't be the case is if you have this pie in the sky idea that somehow this season's going to go a lot better than reality would tell you that it will.
Yeah, I don't hate the idea of thinking that Rattler's going to be the guy week one for that reason. That do you really want to throw your second round pick into the deep end right away?
Exactly. And so let's, without that in mind, let's start talking about this schedule. And I'll see if I can make us a little bigger here. I had a better version of this. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. It's clean, fresh and clean. But yeah, and so part of the reason, in this segment, we're going to go through weeks 1 through 10, which no bye weeks in that span. I think week 11 is a pretty ideal time for a bye in general. The closer you can get it to midway through the season, the better. Like a week 5 bye is a nightmare, in my opinion. A week 14 bye is a nightmare. That might be, I can, whatever the last week is to have a bye. Like if you have the latest possible bye, that's a bad thing. No international games, you don't have to worry about that. But to me, the way this first month of the season sets up actually makes it, in my opinion, even less attractive to try to throw Tyler Shuck in there right away, because I think the most difficult stretch of your entire schedule is right here in the first month, your first 4 games. Yes, you get the first 2 at home, but I think the Cardinals are a playoff caliber team that's healthy, right? I think the 49ers, you're talking about a team that came in last in this division and lost a lot of games, but they didn't lose games because they weren't talented. They lost games because they had injuries and Chris McCaffrey wasn't there and whatnot. So like those first 2 games, let's just say they could have been a lot easier, because I think the 49ers are, yes, they moved on from Deebo Samuel, but they still have Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, a really good defense. I mean, I have them starting 0-2. Like my predictions that I put on WWL.com, which you can follow along, the link is in the show notes. Like I have them starting 0-2. And, after back-to-back seasons where you started 2-0 and then everything fell off the rails, like you see how easily that happened. Starting 0-2, man, that just feels like a brutal way to go. But I find it very difficult to picture a scenario where you just jump into this thing, new offense, new defense, new quarterback, and you're rolling from day one, and you're going against 2 teams with established systems and talented quarterbacks. That's a tough way to go.
Yeah, I'm a lot more confident for week 2 than week 1 for the Saints. That Cardinals game, I think they are a team that's on the rise. They play hard for their head coach over there, and Kyler Murray is going to be a problem. They got good weapons, wide receiver, tight end, the run game in general. The defense is pretty good. So that one definitely scares me more than the Niners, just because of those injuries. I really don't know what to expect from the Niners team right now. There is no Debo. Brandon Ayuk, I know, is banged up at the moment. But, yeah, you're going to have George Kittle, who's a problem. We'll see what Christian McCaffrey's like. Luckily, it is in the Superdome. But an 0-2 start definitely doesn't seem out of the question here. I'm hoping 1-1 that they can pull out the game against San Fran. But it's not like a ton of confidence right now. And just overall, this is really tough for me with the Saints, just because, man, there's so many unknowns from head coach and quarterback. The two most important things here.
Right. And like Kyler Murray is going to be interesting to see. Yeah, I think Brandon Staley's defense should fare better against mobile QBs than the scheme we've seen over the past few years with Dennis Allen, right? And that was one of the biggest kind of holes in that scheme is, you have kind of these big-bodied, bulky defensive ends, and they just can't chase guys down. Whereas some of these outside linebackers you're going to throw on the field should be a little bit better at that, or where you're aligning them and what you're asking them to do should be more conducive to setting edges and keeping guys hemmed in. So maybe that helps. And like, if that's the case and the defense shows up and the offensive line plays well, right? Like that's kind of the question mark for this team that I think, from a talent perspective, they should have a pretty effective offensive line, right? Like, it's easy to forget last year early on, like the offensive line was a strength, and it got hurt and everything kind of fell apart. But if you end up with Trevor Penning at right tackle and he kind of keeps progressing, Taliesin Fuaga at left tackle, then you have 3 first-round picks, or 2 first-round picks in Kelvin Banks and Cesar Ruiz. I would assume Kelvin will play left guard, Cesar Ruiz will play right guard, and then Eric McCoy, who's probably the best of the bunch at center. Like that could be a strength. And so we'll see. Like I'm being pessimistic right now because I can't bring myself to be an optimist, but there are things that could go well to kind of get you closer to your ceiling. And yeah, if you could steal one of these games at home, which you're not going to be favored in, we didn't talk about it. The Saints are not going to be favored in any of these games. At least
won the entire season.
Yeah, right. As of now from Vegas, they are underdogs in every single game, including the home games against like the Giants and Patriots. So yeah, anyway, let's move on.
But I'll say real quick too, back-to-back weeks to open with, you got 2 scary tight ends you got to deal with. Trey McBride, George Kittle, which we've seen this team have problems with the pass. So that's why I'm a little pessimistic for this start too.
But it's a different scheme, right? So it's tough to say like, well, this was a problem before and now it's still going to be a problem. Like one of the reasons it was a problem is because the scheme didn't handle those positions particularly well, right? So you should be a little bit more athletic. You should be able to match up a little better. We'll see. That's all hypothetical. Next up, you go on the road for 2 games, which probably is the most difficult 2-game stretch of your season when you kind of break it down, because you are flying out to the Pacific Northwest.
Going to one side and then the other.
Then you are flying back to New Orleans. I assume they're not going to stay out west. You're flying back to New Orleans. Then you're flying up to the other side in Buffalo to face, the reigning MVP and Josh Allen. I see no way they beat Buffalo. Like that's a loss. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see it. I do have them beating Seattle. I am not, it's funny because the Seahawks, they resurrected Geno Smith's career and then flipped him to the side only to bring in a guy in Sam Darnold who had his career resurrected from a different team under similar circumstances. And now that's their guy. I'm not sold on Sam Darnold yet. I think Kevin O'Connell is a quarterback whisperer. He even made Josh Dobbs look passable for a couple weeks, right? And I just don't know if Mike McDonald, I don't know why I said that as if I said Kevin McDonald. I don't know if Mike McDonald and Clint Kubiak are that. That said, we'll be very familiar with the offense the Seahawks are running because it's going to be what the Saints ran last year, because they have Clint Kubiak, Rick Dennison, Andrew Janocko, John Benton. There may even be more. I can't recall. So you'll see familiar faces. I think the Saints win that game because I think you're going to lose the first 2 games at home in front of your fans. That's my prediction, at least. And then you're going to go out there very frustrated, and I think you're going to get a really strong defensive showing. It's going to be a low scoring game. And this will be that if my predictions are right, Spencer Rattler's first win as a NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I'm big time worried about Seattle still. A long road trip, way the heck up in Seattle. You got to travel to. They've got. I agree with you about the question at quarterback. I'm not sold on Sam Darnold yet either. I do think they still have some decent weapons over there. Adding Cooper Kupp,
different weapons.
Yeah, we know Valdez-Scantling from his year here. We'll see if he can duplicate his success with Clint Kubiak over there. But that run game kind of scares me, and I know they were banged up last year. Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet are pretty darn good.
Yeah, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and like another Ohio State guy, and very similar to Chris Olave. Like when you watch him play, they're similar size, a similar skill set. But yeah, DK Metcalf is now with the Steelers, right?
Right.
And Cooper Kupp signed there. Tyler Lockett, I can't recall where he went, but they moved on from Tyler Lockett, which I'm glad because Tyler Lockett was always that guy that would make these big catches, and I was like, God damn it. He's like the Jalen Brunson of the NFL, where you kind of look at him and you're like, that guy's good. And then you see him out there, you're like, son of a bitch.
We will see him. I just looked it up. He's with the Titans now.
Yeah. So we will see him this year. All right. So I have him going 1-3 in that stretch. What do you have him at?
I'm hoping 1-3, but I could see 0-4, sadly.
But you think they're going to, well, I mean, give me a number. I want you to be on a prediction because I want to be able to say.
I'll go with the 1 win. Somehow they find a way in one of these games. I'm not sure if it's either the Niners or the Seattle game.
Pick one. I want to be able to say you have a set number.
All right. I'll say they beat the Niners at home in week 2.
So we both have them going 1-3. We have them winning different games. You have them beating the 49ers. I have them beating the Seahawks, but we have a 1-3 start. And, that's not great, but it's not the nightmare. Like 0-4 is the nightmare scenario because, we talk about the schedule. The strength of schedule is low, but it's not because of these, these 4 teams at the top are not what makes the schedule easy. The next 3 teams should be much more winnable games.
Yeah.
You have the Giants at home, you have the Patriots at home, and then you go on the road to face the Bears and the Fighting Dennis Allens on defense. As much the Giants are such a fascinating team to try to figure out because they've picked in the top 10, heck, the top 5 so many times that they have like a murderer's row on the defensive line.
Oh yeah, that part's scary.
But like they have a roster in the league neighbors, right? Like they have a roster of so many star players that you're just like, how is this team not good? It's kind of reminds me of the Bengals when, because like they picked at the top so many times that when they added Joe Burrow, suddenly they were primed to be good again because they had so many star players that they were just able to add, and they remained bad despite adding a lot of the star players. So they kept just throwing another one on top of the pile. And maybe this is the year the Giants finally get their head out of their ass. I think they're probably going to sit Jackson Dart, even though he was a first-round pick.
We'll probably see Russell Wilson, I would think.
I imagine when the Giants show up, it'll be Russ. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a tough matchup if the Saints' offensive line is not playing at the top of their game.
Yeah, right? Giants be scary.
Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, both top 5 picks in the NFL draft. Brian Burns, who they added last year by a trade, who is a top pass rusher. Oh, and then Dexter Lawrence, who may be the best defensive tackle in the NFL. It's up for debate. Like Chris Jones is up there, but like Dexter Lawrence is a friggin' machine. So like, yeek. That's a lot. God. They could terrorize the Saints offense in that game. I still don't think the Giants offense is going to be like, I think Russ is cooked at this point. Like it used to be let Russ cook. Now it is Russ is cooked. But we'll see. Either way, I still think that Saints should be, I think that should be a competitive game and the Saints should have a good chance. Like that's the best matchup they have to this point in the season.
Yeah, agreed. And I am a little more confident putting a W next to this game because it is the Giants and what we don't know on offense. But man, you rattle off those names on defense and it's definitely scary if this O-line ain't right.
Yeah, and I just don't believe in the Giants. As someone who's watched the Giants a lot, I think the Brian Daboll era is going to end. I have the Saints winning that game, getting to 2-3. Then I have them winning against the Patriots. For some reason, I think they're giving the Patriots too much credit because they have Mike Vrabel now. But like, that team is not ready to win, even with a new head coach. I think Drake May is going to take a step forward. You don't spend $63 million on a 32-year-old wide receiver coming off his worst season and an ACL injury unless you're desperate because you see your skill positions as a disaster. Because even with Stefon Diggs, who I think it's bold to expect him to be a legit wide receiver one at this point in his career, you look beyond that. What are you talking about? Like Ramondre Stevenson? Like that's who you're leaning on? And some of these other guys, like that depth chart is rough. And so if Stefon Diggs isn't playing like a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, where is this offense coming from? So I don't know. I think the Saints win this game. I think the Saints at this point are more prepared to win than the Patriots. Regardless, both teams probably start a second-year quarterback, right? Whereas I think the Saints have at least kind of, they still have Alvin Kamara and they still have, the players on defense that you can lean on. They still have Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. Juwan Johnson, I think, will be featured and could have a much bigger impact. I've been saying that for 3 years now. Maybe this is finally the time I'm right. So I think the Saints win that game. I think they claw back to 3-3.
I'm with you on the W here just because I think I'm with you on too much hype around the Patriots because I think Mike Vrabel, that name, has everyone buzzing about New England again. And the fact that it looks like, at least last year, what we saw from Drake May, he could be that guy for them going forward.
Yeah.
Like, other than that, there ain't a whole lot around him.
Yeah, my issue isn't Drake May.
Right.
I think Drake May is going to continue to develop. My issue is I just don't think the Patriots have the pieces. But we'll see. Maybe Mike Vrabel is the missing. Maybe he does kind of, turn the trajectory of that team and the confidence of that team into something that's more of a winning culture than it has had. Until I see it, I won't believe it. Because the last time I saw the Saints play the Patriots, Bill Belichick was the coach, and they shut him out in New England. I don't know how much has changed in 2 years, but the Saints are similar. The Patriots are similar. Anyway, then the next 3 games, or the next 4 games, so let's kind of speed this up. You have at the Bears, like we said, the Dennis Allen experience, at home against the Bucks, at the Rams, at the Panthers. You go into this, and my predictions at 3-3. I'm just going to tell you where I have the wins and losses, and then we can kind of talk about individual games. I have the Saints losing to the Bears. I think that's going to be a low-scoring game.
Really?
Yes. I think it's going to be like 17-10, something like that. I have the Bears winning. I have the Saints beating the Bucks. I have them finally doing something at home, and that's kind of my theme of this season is I think you're gonna play better at home because you have the young quarterback and you're gonna feel more comfortable, and they're gonna struggle on the road. So I have the Saints beating the Bucks at home in a close game. I think there's a game-winning drive there, and the Saints finally protect home turf against the Bucks, that's been the weirdest series because the road team just always seems to be better. Even Week 18 last year, the Bucks won, but the Saints led with an undermanned roster and Spencer Rattler and no wide receivers and no Alvin Kamara. They were up 10 at halftime. So it's just been weird. But I think the Saints finally get on the right side of that. Week 9, I have the Rams beating the Saints, and Week 10, I have the Panthers beating the Saints. This is in Carolina, so I have them going into the bye week at 4-6.
Yeah, I'm not as optimistic, Jeff. Got them losing in Chicago, have them losing at home to the Bucks, a loss at the Rams, and then also losing to the Panthers. So 4-game skid going into the bye week.
So you have them at 3-7.
Yeah, 3-7.
Yeah, I think it's tough, and there's ways this could go. Again, if it's Spencer Rattler, if it's Tyler Shuck, I think this is a stretch of the season that if you get to it in a certain way, like if you lose to the Bears and Dennis Allen, is shown on the broadcast celebrating and everyone gets frustrated, you lose to the Bucks at a home, then the noise is gonna start getting real loud. Like assuming Tyler Shuck is not the quarterback already. The noise is going to start getting real loud for the change to be made. Because when you're a bridge guy, which that's what Spencer Rattler is going to be, as unfair as it is to him, that's just the reality. When you're in a bridge scenario, you have to be competitive. You have to have this team in contention, or it's going to be, why are we bothering with this? Let's just see what the young guy has. Now, the team might be more reluctant at this point because that week 11 bye feels like a perfect time to make that switch. And if you go up to Carolina, like I'm projecting them to do, and lose to the Panthers, just like last year, I think that's like an ending to something, right? Like when the Saints went up to Carolina and lost that game, it felt like something snapped. And it was like, all right, it's got to happen. I think we would have the same situation this year because, like it or not, I don't care whether people feel like the Panthers are going to be better. It's still going to feel like we lost to the goddamn Panthers. And so, yeah, the Rams game's also tough because you're going out west, and that's going to be a Rams team coming off of a bye. They have a London trip in week 7, a bye in week 8, and then they get the Saints in week 9. And like rest deficits are already tough. You add a West Coast trip to that, something the Saints have not over the last few years been particularly good at handling. Like I'll never forget that Thursday night game. They went out there and just looked like they didn't even want to play in a game that like a must-win game. Kind of like the Knicks last night when they played the Celtics without Jason Tatum, which go Celtics.
They showed they weren't dead.
The Fighting Luke Cornets. Pride of Vanderbilt. Anyway, that was off track. I don't see them going out there. Like, I think this is the final hurrah for Matt Stafford in that, or at least like in that era of I'm the Rams quarterback and we feel like the Rams are title contenders with Matt Stafford there. I think this is kind of the last hurrah for that. And from here, you're gonna see. So if the Rams are competitive and they're playing well and they have Devontae Adams now, it'll be interesting to see how that all goes.
Yeah.
Obviously, Puka Nacua is still there. No more Cooper Kupp. Kyron Williams is there. It's gonna be tough. But yeah, I have the Saints going 1-3 in this stretch. So you have them going 0-4.
Yeah, I got the big O for, like I said, going into the bye week, unfortunately. And like I just don't like the matchup. We talked about the Rams here. The Bucks, I feel they're of the more complete team. There's no doubt about that. And they've got time together. Baker will have them cruising. This is probably usually think about those divisional matchups and you kind of split them. And I'll do that with Atlanta and the Panthers. But I think the Bucks end up sweeping the Saints this year.
Yeah, I just can't bring myself to predict that. At the same time, as much as I hate to say it, it's hard not to envision. I just don't have faith in the Falcons. I don't have faith in the Panthers.
Right.
And I just think the Saints are 1 year away. And so it just feels like, man, the Bucks are going to friggin' prance to a 5th straight NFC South title. Like, it's hard to see a scenario where that doesn't happen, even against a first place schedule and the Saints with a 4th place schedule. But we'll have to see. Either way,
I wonder what the record is in the South for how many times, back-to-back years that people have won it. I don't know. 5 straight will be a new record holder there.
I don't know, but unfortunately, I feel like we're going to end up having to look that up.
Yeah,
which is frustrating. So we'll see. Either way, 4-6 to me over the first 10 games would not be a nightmare scenario. I think it's reasonable with the scenario the Saints are in, especially if you're saying, okay, Spencer Rattler is getting that first 10 games. You head into the bye, you make a decision. I think you change quarterbacks. That's where my predictions go, is you make that change for the final 6 games and you see what Tyler has. But you have him going 3-7, similar scenario. You just have one more loss baked in there. We got there slightly different ways, but similar. Let's go to the break. We're going to come back and hit the final 6 games of this schedule and then kind of our overview to close out the episode. Again, I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. This is Inside Black and Gold, breaking down the Saints 2025 schedule, which officially came out yesterday. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. Hit us up on Twitter at Jeff Nowak, at Steve Geller WWL. Follow the show at Saints_pod. If you haven't, ring the bell on YouTube. If you use Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, make sure to subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you'd like to see more of during this season, and we'll try to get to that as much as possible. Otherwise, stick around. We will be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak, Steve Geller. Just into the pod, some breaking news. Colin Saunders is out there tweeting again. This is a direct quote. from Colin Saunders on Twitter at Colin not Kalen 51 minutes ago at this point, which is basically when we started recording. It says 0 primetime games is effing insane. Expletive deleted. Wow, bro. Wow. League said, here, take y'all funky ass schedule and GTFO my face.
I love you, Bink. That's great.
Keep in mind, this is a guy who played the first 4 or 5 years of his career in Kansas City, competing for Super Bowls.
Oh my Lord!
Prime time, all the time.
Does Kansas City have every primetime game and every holiday this year?
Feels like it. So yeah, it must be weird for him. Because even last year, the Saints had 3, 0. Anyway, but all right. Continuing. Went through the first 10 games in the last segment. Now we are going to go through the final 6. It's a little lopsided because this half includes the bye, but it's a little lopsided in terms of home versus road as well, because the Saints, 6 of their final 9 games are on the road, right? That's a lot. A lot. And so if the Saints, I have them going into this stretch at 4-6. You have them at 3-7. If they do want to have a chance to contend for the postseason, you got to do better than that on the front half of your schedule, probably. Because it's just not easy to go on the road and win games, especially with a young quarterback. But week 11 bye, again, I have them changing quarterbacks at this point. I think my prediction, right, which could be wrong, could be right. We have no idea. We haven't even seen these guys out there. But right now, as I sit here in my Roger Goodell clown shirt, which I still have, even though it is no longer featuring a Saints head coach, I think Spencer Rattler starts the first 10 games, gets invaluable experience, gets his first 4 wins as a starting quarterback. Now you have, worst case scenario, a backup quarterback with 16 games of starting experience, who, if you had to turn to him at any point, you feel like, all right, we're in good shape with someone who can at least go in there and play at an NFL level. He's under contract for 3 more years, including this one, at a very reasonable rate. So you could end up with your starting quarterback on a rookie contract for 4 years and your backup quarterback on a rookie contract. If you have a legitimate starter and legitimate backup on rookie contract money, think about what they paid Andy Dalton to come in and be the backup. Think about what they paid Jameis Winston to come in and be the backup. If you can get both of those positions covered on rookie contracts, you'll be able to build this team the way the Seahawks did when they had Russell Wilson on a rookie contract, the way the 49ers have been able to with Brock Purdy on a rookie contract. That's a cheat code. So, I think that's a good scenario. Even if this season kind of goes off the rails a little bit, like I'm predicting for it too, that's a good scenario for you. Anyway, so I have them changing to Tyler Shuck, and fittingly, his first game as the Saints starting quarterback is at home in the Caesar Superdome against the Falcons, and Michael Penix walking in as the Falcons starter for the first time. What, in a certain universe, in a certain branch of the multiverse, is a long-term young QB versus young QB, neither QB being that young, rivalry between these two guys who are roughly the same age. I don't know. I think that could be fun. I think it'd be a fun little subplot. And I don't see Michael Penix walking out of the dome for the first time with a win, at least as a starter for the first time. The vibe check gonna be great. The crowd's gonna be great. Shuck's gonna walk in. They haven't been able to see him on tape, so they're gonna be a little raw on that side. I think the Saints come out of here with a win. You kick off the Tyler Shuck era with a win. You kick the Falcons down into the dirt, and you feel good about it. You're gonna hit some rocks along the way. You're gonna trip and fall at points. But just like the Darren Rizzi era last year got off to a positive start with a win over the Falcons after a devastating loss to the Panthers and a change at the top, similar vibes. Shuck it. Let's see what happens.
I'm with you on this one. Saints come off the bye, get the win against Atlanta, Kellen Moore's first, time taking on the Dirty Birds. Shuck in action, getting a win too to set the tone for the Who Dat Nation here. Got to get off on the right foot against Atlanta. This is going to be a 3:25 scheduled start, and I wonder if that ends up being like
game of the week,
big premier matchup for the late game here.
It's on Fox too,
okay.
Which the premier ratings window in the NFL every week. It's not Sunday Night Football. It is not Monday Night Football. It is the afternoon window on Fox.
Right.
That's why they call it America's Game of the Week.
Yeah.
Because it has the highest rate. You can go look at the ratings every week, barring Thanksgiving or something like that, which is a different scenario. That window gets the most ratings because all these home markets are getting their games, right? Then there's 2 to 3 games in the afternoon. So regionally, you're going to be playing one or two of if there's a West Coast game, you might see that in California or whatever. But the entire East Coast is going to be getting Atlanta, New Orleans, especially if it is that rookie, that Tyler Shuck, Michael Penix. This could be the start of a long-term quarterback rivalry. So that's the closest thing the Saints will have to a primetime game this year is Saints-Falcons Week 12 in the Superdome. And it would be very fitting, and maybe this is just me trying to be a little bit too dramatic, trying to set up the drama a little bit more than reality will allow for. But the script writers don't typically let me down, and this just makes too much sense. So either way, that's my prediction. That's what I think is going to happen. This will be the first game of the Tyler Shuck era. He's going to match up with Michael Penix. It's going to look similar to when Daniel Jones made his debut for the Giants against the Bucs. And in that game, I think he came back from a 17-point deficit. Jameis Winston on the other side. I think I remember that game vividly because the Bucs missed a 38-yard field goal at the end that would have won it. And everyone was like, Daniel Jones is the truth. I think we're going to get a similar situation and overreaction from Saints fans. And it'll come crashing down quickly when they go out and lose the next week. But that's where I am. So that would put me at 5-6. It would put you at 4-7.
Right.
4-7. Yeah. Then the Tyler Shuck era, everyone's talking about it. You go out week 13, week 14 on the road at the Dolphins, at the Bucs.
Florida road trip.
I have the Saints losing both these games.
Yeah, I can't argue with that either. The Dolphins, they're kind of like the Niners to me. I don't know what to make of them quite going into this year. A lot of questions, quarterback, wide receiver, but I just think that it'll be a little bit too much for the Saints to handle in Miami, unfortunately.
The biggest question that the Dolphins have to answer is, can Tua Tagovailoa stay healthy? Can he get through a full season? So if you're facing Skylar Thompson, who's their backup? I don't even know. But the reason last year went off the rails for the Dolphins
it's actually the cast off from the Jets and Broncos, Zach Wilson.
Oh, it's even worse. Right. So if you get to this point and Tua's not there, then that's a completely different scenario. I can't predict that. And I don't want to predict that. I don't want to sit here and say, I don't think Tua's going to be there because he's going to have another head injury.
Or it could be Quinn Ewers.
Quinn Ewers. Okay. Interesting. Either way, if there's this late in the season, it's tough to predict because you're guessing at a lot of it.
Yeah.
Right. What I will say is the Dolphins are another team coming off a bye, so they should be rested. If you get a fully formed Dolphins roster where Tyreek Hill isn't asking out, right? The shine hasn't come off the Mike McDaniels off. The Dolphins are kind of fascinating because I think the Rams, for example, they may be resetting the deck at quarterback after this season. The Dolphins might be on the verge of a total teardown if things go a certain way. If Tua ends up having another concussion and it's will that end his career? Suddenly you don't have a quarterback at all. You have an older wide receiver. You're paying a ton of money. This offense that's kind of built on being wide open can't do anything until you get an actual quarterback in there. There's really no veterans that makes sense. And you'd be going into next season, maybe drafting a rookie. And then who knows? I feel like, that thing could go off the rails. Either way, I'm going to go into the assumption that's not what happens and the Saints lose here. They go out to Tampa and the Bucs, who are probably on the verge of putting away the division at this point, probably take care of business in ways they haven't previously. They take advantage of a rookie quarterback who I think is going to struggle in his first extended road action, both in Miami, but just in the state of Florida in general. This kind of ends that subplot that the Saints dominate the state of Florida. They fall, in my opinion, to 5-8. Do you have them winning either of these games?
No, so I'm at 4-9 right now, right behind you.
All right. Next up, they come back home, face the Panthers, which we talked about the Saints being underdogs in all but one of these games. That only game that they are favored in right now is Week 16 against the Jets in the Superdome. That means that they are an underdog. Vegas has the Saints as a 1.5 point underdog to the Panthers in the Superdome in Week 15, which people are just hating on the Saints at this point because in no universe should the Panthers be favored on the road versus basically anybody. Like, I get it. If they're feeling better about them now than you were this time last year, I don't buy it. I think by this time in the year, everyone's going to be like, you know what? Bryce Young doesn't have it. The Panthers will be in the tank. And I think the Saints win this game in a blowout. I think this is the only game of the season the Saints win by double digits. I have it at 42-24.
Oh, that's heavy duty. You're not kidding about a blowout. I think I do have the Saints winning here just because, like I mentioned, usually you figure you split with your division opponents. I'm not splitting with Tampa this year, so the Saints take this one at home against Carolina.
Yeah, I just think the Saints are going to get – I think this is going to be a year where the Saints get back to we play better at home than on the road. Like, I think you're going to have a lot of young players who are going to be a little more comfortable at home, the quarterback in particular, and so you're going to be a much more formidable group at home. Again, injuries are going to play a huge role, right? Like, if you get to this point and you still have Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed and all these guys and your offensive line's intact, that's one game. If you get to this point in the season and you look like you did last year, that's a completely different game. So take that with a grain of salt. I also have them beating the Jets the next week. I don't think Justin Fields is the long-term answer there. We'll see. If he is, then he's going to be a tough one to handle from a mobile quarterback perspective. So we'll have to see if Brandon Staley's defense, I think this is the point where if Alvin Kamara is still active, you're going to start to see him take over some matchups. Hopefully Devin Neal by this point has kind of emerged. But yeah, I have the Saints. So they lose back-to-back games. They win back-to-back games. Yo-yo in full effect. And
I'm right with you on that right after the bye for sure. The Jets don't impress me at all. And this is definitely an interesting matchup with the Jets just because I don't even know if Justin Fields will still be the quarterback then. I don't know who else that they even have right now.
Sorry, the dog is freaking out. I agree with you. So this gets the Saints back. Can you stop making noise? Jeez.
Oh, there you go. I looked that one up too. Tyrod Taylor is the backup over there.
Yeah. So that's the only reason. Like, I heard Mike Toss say that yesterday. Of like, I don't think Justin Fields will be the quarterback at that point. I mean, it won't be because you say Tyrod Taylor is the QB of the future, and you don't really have like for example, there's not a good example on the back end of this roster, or the back end of this schedule, but like, for example, the Giants in Week 5, if they start 0-4, maybe they decide, okay, clearly Russ isn't the guy. Maybe it's just time to make that early switch to Jackson Dart. I don't think the Jets there's no one on the roster where they would say like, maybe he's the future. Tyrod's not. He's a backup. Now, he's a good backup. I think if he is in there, he gives the Jets a chance to win. Like, that's why teams keep signing him. But yeah, anyway, so I have the Saints winning both those. So that gets them back to 7-8. And I think I kind of have it going like the floor is 4 wins, the ceiling is 10 wins. I have them landing somewhere in the middle because, they have some bad luck, they have some good luck. Maybe they run into a team or two with some injuries that they didn't expect to beat, but they beat because of the circumstances. Losing 11, 12, 13 games, unless you're trying to do it, it's hard because you're going to get to the back end of your schedule and there's going to be some teams that are in circumstances that they're probably trying to do that, Whereas the Saints are not going to be. The Saints will never be that team that actively tries to lose. Especially if you have a rookie quarterback that you're trying to build confidence in. You're going to send him out there and see, hey, let's see if we can steal some wins here and ruin draft picks. And that's exactly what they're going to do. These 2 home games at the end of the season are going to be them ruining draft picks. Now, I then have them going out on these final 2 road trips and losing to both the Titans and the Falcons, which kind of just the Titans is a tougher one to figure out. I imagine Cam Ward will be their quarterback, and I genuinely have no idea where they'll be at this point, if they'll be competitive, if either of these teams will still be in contention. But I have the Saints losing their final 2 games, finishing 7-10.
I have them losing to the Falcons. The Titans game, man, I don't know what Tennessee really even has. That roster is a big question mark to me, and I feel like the Saints can go in there and pull out the W there. So I'll take the victory at the Titans, and I guess that puts us at the same 7-10 mark. Then we end up getting the same way, a little bit of a different path, but we end up with the same result.
You have them beating the Panthers and the Jets too?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we both get to 7-10. Yeah. I just think that's kind of the common sense result of, if things go perfectly, right? If you have great injury luck and, the young players play well and you get some luck on the other side where you run into some teams with bad injury luck, you face some backup quarterbacks. I always kind of look at it as, and I think I said this earlier, okay, what's the ceiling? I put the ceiling at 10 wins. I don't see a scenario where they get over 10 wins. Now, on the opposite side, if everything goes terribly, right? If, the young quarterback doesn't have it, if you have bad injury luck, the offensive line, you lose several key pieces. Chris Olave gets hurt again. Rashid Shaheed gets hurt again. Alvin Kamara kind of starts to show his age. I think the floor is probably somewhere around 4 wins. I don't see them getting below 4 wins. It's unless you're trying to do it, it's really tough to win 4 or fewer games. Now, I think they'd be in a great position if they were that's what I almost wish they would win fewer than 7 games. I just don't see it.
Selfishly, I just look at that too for us covering the team and how brutal that would be.
Man, the last 3 weeks of last season was so friggin' awful. Going out to Green Bay, coming back facing the Raiders, then going out to Tampa.
And then, too, locker room is tough.
Just let it end, right? Everyone's miserable.
Right.
Yeah, it's not fun. And just especially the veterans, Alvin Kamara mired in a 3, you kind of feel like, man, just trade these guys away because they don't deserve this. This is how they're going to end their career. A guy like Cam Jordan, this is probably his last year. I'd be surprised if he plays another year. You're going to have him sit through a 3-14 season, something like that. That's a bummer. So just my optimism alone makes me want to believe that you'll be able to do better for those guys and at least have it be you get to the final 6 games of the season where if you go 5-1, which is unlikely, but if you go 5-1, you're at least in the postseason, right? Because that'll put you at 9-8 in my estimation, right? Final 7 games. I think I said the final 6 games several times earlier in this podcast. What I meant was the final 7 games. So if you go 5-2, that would put you at 9-8. If you start 4-6, finish 5-2, you're at 9-8. And I don't think you're going to do that, but if you get to the, if you're 1-9, something like that, and when you get to the bye week, that's brutal. And because then you finish, you could finish 7-0, and you're still not 500, right? And that's so. I'm hopeful for the sake of those guys, those veterans, the Demario Davises, the Cam Jordans, the Tyrann Matthews, the Alvin Kamaras, that you're able to at least get to week 12, get past the bye with some level of, man, if we get on a roll here, we'll have a chance. And especially if that's when you're making the change to the rookie quarterback, maybe you kind of catch lightning in a bottle, and it's unlikely, but the hope would be there at least. So that's where I am.
Now let's go through the schedule with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. I'm joking.
Brutal. It's also okay. So yeah, the preseason schedule came out too. 2 home games, but the first game is on the road against the Chargers. So they just keep sending me to SoFi freaking Stadium. I hate that goddamn stadium, but it's we go there at least once. Most often we go there twice a year because this is the second in the year in the past 3 that the Saints play the Chargers in the preseason. And they also have the Rams in the regular season. And last year, where they didn't go there in the preseason. They had the Chargers in the regular season. So this will be my fifth. I've been on the sideline for 3 years. This will be my fifth trip to SoFi Stadium in 3 years. And it's by far my least favorite stadium in the NFL. Hate that place.
That's amazing considering the money that they dumped into that thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's
what is it? Just no personality to it?
It's all built for aesthetics. It is all built like out of cheap plastic. It feels like, and it's none of it's practical. Like even just for example, they have these like recessed field level boxes along the sidelines, right? Think about that. You are paying an insane amount of money to sit field level. And it's below the field. When you're standing in there, you're about 2 feet below.
I hate those bunkers that they call them.
Right. And think about it. You're on the sideline. The
Terrible.
players' benches are on the sidelines. You won't even be able to watch the game.
Yeah.
You'll have to watch it on TV. Common sense. Like, why would you even do that? That is stupidity. But that's just an example of this stadium, right? Like, you spent billions of dollars on this stadium. The visiting locker room is like a high school locker room. It's got metal lockers with like the holes in it. Like, this is a brand new freaking stadium. You couldn't even put like an actual locker room in there.
Still nothing tops for me. I don't know if it still is that bad, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers visiting locker room.
But it's old. Like, that's like, it's an old stadium, so there's old things, and you kind of just accept it for what it is. There's also a pirate ship in there. Like SoFi, like all the food is prepackaged. Anyway, I don't need to. We're going back again. Hate that building. Funniest thing to me about the Rams is when I was walking out. This is 2 years ago, when the Rams beat the Saints in Week 16, that Thursday Night Football game. I guess it was Week 16. It was the pre-Christmas game, and walking out, the Rams are doing their chant, and their chant is Rams house. Whose house? Rams house. And as they're walking out of this building yelling that, I look over and I see the groundskeepers in the process of stripping the Rams logo off of midfield so they can replace it with the Chargers logo. And it's like, your whole chant is based around the fact that this is your building, when in reality, you share it with a different team.
It's a co-op.
Anyway, so I don't know why. Like, that's an aside. The whole point was the Saints are going out to face the Chargers in week 1 of the preseason. I fully expect them to spend at least a week out there doing joint practices. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than just like a 3-day stretch. I wouldn't be surprised if they go out, because now they have the understanding of how to operate at Irvine. I wouldn't be surprised if they turn it into like a 10-day trip where you start with a couple practices out there at the Irvine practice facility. You get on a bus and go over to wherever the Chargers are practicing, or have the Chargers come to you and have joint practices with the Chargers. Like, I think it's going to, my prediction for this offseason is that not only will they have joint practices, that they will also turn it into like a kind of mini version of what they did last year, building up to that first preseason game. And then you come directly home after that first preseason game, have the rest of your offseason program in Metairie with the home games on top of that, which the final one will be, I think Jaguars are second, I want to say.
Jags, right.
And then they have Sean Payton coming in with the Broncos in the final game of the preseason, so we'll get to see him again. That's my prediction. It's like, not just will they have joint practices, that trip out to California will be an extended version of what we would traditionally look at as joint practices.
Yeah, the Saints have had experience. Obviously, you mentioned, how many times you've already been to SoFi, and then you got Kellen Moore, Brandon Staley. They know the area well, so I could see that too.
Yeah, and so we'll see. And I'm sure the bosses will appreciate it, because
those hotels are cheap out there.
Yeah. It will be cheaper than last time. Let's put it that way. But yeah, definitely. I don't think the bosses will appreciate this becoming a yearly tradition.
Hey, at least you're not going to Maui with the Rams.
That's true. But yeah, the second I saw the schedule come out and it was like that, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Is like, it's perfect, because it would be impossible to do that if, for example, home preseason game, then road preseason game, then home preseason finale, because you wouldn't be able to go out early after, like you would have to be in your facility for the first preseason game, so you couldn't add days to the front of that trip. In this circumstance, you can have like a week of practices at your facility, transition out there for however long you want to be there, then come back and finish out your slate. I think so you get the luxury of practicing in lighter weather, getting out of Dodge for a few days, still have those joint practices. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got on the schedule. Is there anything else you want to hit before we close this thing out?
No, let's wrap it up. I'm hungry.
I am too. We made the executive decision to do this whole thing right through lunch.
And I did not eat lunch, right?
Yeah. So all I've been doing is chugging coffee this entire time.
Yeah, I'm about to get like those Snicker commercials and get really cranky.
I do want to give credit. So I complain a lot about the bagels here. No one makes bagels, right?
No.
One place. And I don't know if they ship in water. I don't know what they do, but it's called Flower Moon. It's right off the Greenway in Mid-City in New Orleans. Easily the best bagels in the city.
All right. I'm putting that on my list. I definitely want to check it out.
Yeah,
like you said, it's one of those things, cannot find a good bagel for the life of me.
And it's right off the Greenway, so you can, grab a coffee, go for a walk. It's really nice. So they are not paying me to say this. I went there this morning.
Free endorsement.
I have the coffee cup in front of me. So if you're looking for a bagel in the footprint of New Orleans, that's where I tell you to go.
I will check it out for sure.
As a bagel snob,
yes,
which I very much consider myself to be.
Yeah, I've even gone to the lengths of ordering bagels from Brooklyn to get delivered here. Mm-hmm. It just ends up being too costly. I'm like, I'm spending $30 on a dozen bagels. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and there's a lot of places that like have good bagels, but they're just not what. And I'm just, that's not what I grew up with, So I'm a snob about it. Same way with pizza.
Certain things that Louisiana does great. Sorry, bagel's not one of them.
Bagel's not one of them, right? Like I love the food down here. They do so many things right. Bagels and pizza, hard pass.
I have found good pizza though, at least.
Yes, but it's like the idea that you could just go into any pizza shop and get a good pizza. It's like Saint Pizza is where I would go. Anyway, that's my secondary like
endorsements everywhere.
It would be nice if they actually gave me money for these endorsements, but those are the two that I'll give you anyway.
Maybe somebody will sell something with this podcast eventually. Who knows?
Maybe some year, some decade, we'll accept advertising. We're like the Masters. No advertising. Who dat? Go Saints. Thanks everyone for listening. Schedule went through it all. If you have any questions, do you want to hit me up, Steve, on Twitter at Jeff Nowak, at Steve Geller WWL. Follow the show at Saints_pod. Subscribe, review your podcast, rate, review, ring the bell on YouTube. We've got a lot of new subscribers on YouTube, so I want to say thank you to everyone if you're still here. It's going to be a fun off season. I'm looking forward to it. OTA is coming up soon. We'll be out there. Got a lot to get to, but till then,
shuck to it.
Be easy, y'all. Peace.